Hello friends, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be all about different size sticker kits and how they fit within the Hobonichi A6 weekly supplement and the Techo daily pages. I'll be going over Hobo Week size, full box size stickers. I don't have a kit on me, so unfortunately I can't go over that in detail. I do apologize. The Hobonichi Cousin size, which is meant to fit within the Cousin weekly layout. And last but not least, the vertical size, which I may be referring to as the 1.5. I'll go ahead and start with the A6 weekly supplement. So this is an example of how you might be able to use the full boxes and the sticky notes. Here is a closer look at how close the full box fits within the width, and the sticky notes have approximately 1 grid left on each side. This is a comparison between the actual Hobo Weeks and the A6. The A6 is slightly wider, but if you're okay with it not perfectly filling out the entire bottom, you may be able to use that. And let me show you a comparison of the actual columns. As you can see here, the sizing is very, very close to the Hobo Weeks. I really enjoy how a typical vertical or 1.5 fits within the columns. There's about half a grid left over on each side and they fill up too. There's going to be 3 grids left over if you decide to start from the Monday. Here's another example. It was very easy to place down because it was so close to the 2 columns. Here's an example of how the Hobonichi Cousin style works. It's a little bit over 1 grid left over on each side, so this was a lot harder for me to place personally. This is another 1.5 inch, so again, the same 3 grids left over. Here's examples of how larger emojis, larger character stickers versus more typical, smaller character stickers fit within the columns. They all fit fine. I've never had problems with them fitting. These buttons are very similar to smaller, tiny icon stickers. They take up approximately 2 grids, so these also fit really nicely within smaller planners. Moving on to the daily pages, I've tabbed off some pages that I think might be helpful. All right, here's an example I wanted to show of larger Bujo decorative journaling style stickers. They definitely will fit in the bottom portion. You can fit up about 20 millimeters, I would say, in the bottom. All right, here's an example of the bottom washi from a typical vertical 1.5 inch layout. I think it's about 30 millimeters. I could be mistaken. I'll show you another example of this, but even if you stick it right to the bottom of the page, you will go over several of the grids depending on how far you go. So that's how that would fit. I did have to cut off the sides, obviously, because it's a lot longer. And this is how the weekend banner for the typical 1.5 would fit. It goes all the way up until that date. All right, here's an example of a 10 millimeter washi, 15 millimeter washi. Another thing I wanted to show you on this page is how buttons or smaller icons and regular character stickers can fit on this side because it takes up about 2 grid sizes. It fits right within that hourly section, and you can even fit larger character stickers in here if you would like. Here is an example of how Hobo Weeks full boxes fit. I always match it to this delineating line. There is a slight overlap, but these also fit pretty well. I was able to get 4 in there with 1 grid between each box. Here is an example of a 15 millimeter washi and a 5 millimeter washi. You can definitely fit it in this bottom portion with a little bit of space. This was also from, I believe, a Hobonichi Cousin kit. Apologies if I'm getting them mixed up. And this is how a typical 1.5 date cover looks. It covers up the date pretty well. There's a little bit of space left over on top and bottom, but from left to right, it's pretty darn close. Another example of how it looks with a 10 millimeter washi at the bottom. Here is an example of a Hobonichi Cousin weekend banner. It'll go a little bit into the date area, but you can definitely fit it up at the top. This is an example of a full box from a vertical 1.5 inch. it takes up about half of the left column. Keep that in mind. This is a half box. There's about half a grid left over on each side, so it fits really well. Very similar to how it took up 2 columns within the vertical of the weekly supplement. An example of how a larger seal sticker looks in the corner of the page. Here's another example of how a 30mm fits. With a little bit of space at the bottom, it took up about 2.5 grids in addition to that. This is how that same 30mm washi strip looks at the top. It goes down until around 7 a.m. Here is a good comparison between a typical 1.5 versus a Hobonichi Cousin full box. You'll have approximately 1 grid left over on each side from this left delineating line. Here's an example of Hobonichi Cousin banners. I overlapped 3 and you can go across the entire page. I don't really mind the overlap, it doesn't bother me much. You can cut it down to size. It fits perfectly from the hour line to the delineating line. This again is a Hobonichi Cousin size. You'll need a 1.5 if you want it to go all the way to the very far left line. The Hobonichi Weeks to-do list also fits really well in this top right corner where the checkboxes are. Here is another example of washi, 15mm washi overlapped one another. You can overlap about 1/3 of the way and it can fit 2. Here's a good comparison between overlapping 2 Hobonichi Cousin size banners. Putting one on top of the other, you'll need 2 to fill out this right-hand side. And last but not least, another look at the sizing of typical character stickers that you can use in the bottom portion as well. These ones from Happy Dye are a little bit smaller. This is the smallest emoji in a typical emoji, so that's kind of how it would look. You should be able to fit up to around 2 depending on how small they are. I hope this was helpful in some way. If you have any other questions or other sizes you would like to see, I will try my best to answer them in the comments below. Thank you so much. Always stay safe, take care, and happy planning. Bye.